she went to a friend's house and we had a really good conversation till nearly 2 o'clock in the morning. And it's exactly that, when we allow them to speak. You know what I'm saying? Just allow them to speak and we hear what it is they're saying, because we sometimes have tendencies where when they're speaking, we become anxious to finish off their sentence. And it's in that moment where it's so critical for them to not be distracted, because that is, you know what I'm saying? And I'm guilty of that. I've done it many a times with all my children. And like I said, last night was one where she actually allowed me to enter into her world of how she had been affected by this whole pandemic. But because I just saw her getting on with it, I assumed she was coping. And she wasn't. You know, she in her own way put strategies in place that made it look like she was getting on with it all. But until I had that conversation, only because I don't want to say I allowed her to speak, but she was ready to open up, having been around her friends. And because they're at that 17 age where their conversation is different to what it was when they were 16 and 15, they've realized there's a growth in all of them. And what they probably told themselves a year ago, their story has changed because of the influences that have happened in that year, i.e. this big, massive one that we're just, you know, been faced with. Now, I know myself as an adult, I've had a moment of where I felt a bit impacted by it, but because I've disciplined myself to not allow negativity to be the bane of anything no more, I've been able to cope. But she hadn't, and she wasn't able to express herself or even process it. That was the word she used. She couldn't process what had gone on, coming from one extreme to the other. I mean, this is her future. She was building her future, and now the world has told her she's probably not got a future. So that was where we identified where she was, and her wanting to like give up. Like, what's the point? I don't even know where I'm going to be. I was supposed to be going to America to complete my, you know, she's going to a university in America. That was the trip she was supposed to be taking next month, to go feel out the place, get familiar with where she's going to be a year from now. And that's been taken away from her. No one's got any answers for her. And normally where she could come to me and I would give her answers, I don't even have any answers. So she's just one child out of the thousands, millions that are feeling exactly what she's feeling and don't have answers, because who the answer's supposed to come from, they don't even have the answers.
No, we don't have the answers.
Let alone. So we're in critical times as role models, as well as parents, who we'll be able, we can always find an answer for our own children, but those who we're trying to, pacify by do as I say, not as I do kind of, technique, we don't have the answers. We're grappling with everything that the media throws at us, or wherever we get the literature from, or some sort of some kind, with the hope that that's the outcome, that's the resolution or the revelation of it all. But yeah, so thank you everybody. I can see the platform getting hot now, and as hot as I am. Hello. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining myself and Scott. You could have been anywhere in the world that you wanted to, but you chose to spend this hour or so with myself and my co-host Scott. So I I just want to say thank you. It's a beautiful day outside. I hope you're looking forward to today's topic. It's a Father's Day edition. Being the you they wish to see, as we know. And we'll take it from there. We'll see how it pans out. There's a Q&A involved. And if you've got any questions yourself that you want to pose, like I always say, if you're not familiar with Zoom, there is if you hover your mouse, if you're on a PC or what, if you've got a phone, then it's a swiping thing. There's symbols at the bottom that if you click on the chat, it will allow you to put your answer, your question in there or anything. I'm sure by now you guys must know, because Zoom has been the way forward in communication. So people must have familiarized themselves with it. So I just want Scott to just give a wave there. All right.
Waving.
And we're not sure if Jean-Claude is joining us, but if he does, we see him along the way. So
Send out the link to your friends.
yes, wherever you saw this information, just forward it on, whether it was a link, whether you know the password and ID off by heart, just forward it. Let's get this platform being built up, because we are in a time where information is key. The right information is key. You never know what platform you may go on where there is an answer to a niggling question that you may have. And I always believe that somebody on here is the answer to somebody's doubt or somebody's concern. So we'll take it from there. All right, so let's begin. Let's get the show on the road. And hello, welcome, 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 welcome. All of you who have been with us over the past, this is our 13th episode. Well, I say mine, Scott joined me episode 5. And I'm going to clap for myself, because, you know, there have been a lot of gremlins that could have so easily allowed me to no longer continue. But God is good. He's good. He's good. Okay, so without further ado, let me just read some housekeeping rules to you. This is very important. So we approach each platform with the utmost level of respect for our viewers. For this, we are mindful that there may be topics discussed that are sensitive and personal to you. However, we welcome your opinions and would appreciate if you could refrain from the hostile comments, as we endeavor to maintain a holistic platform to be openly discussed freely and from a place of authentic maturity. So if we please you, please do tell us. And if we don't, well, tell others as well. But if we don't please you, please tell us. And last but not least, we hope you enjoyed the show. So it's a Father's Day edition, as you know. So I just want to say happy Father's Day for Sunday, for the fathers, and for the week. But I'm gonna, when I say that, this is for both men and women, because we live in a society where the adaptation of father and daddy figure has been taken on by the woman in some households for many years, and is still current. So for those where this has been the case, I just want to acknowledge that, and, you know, kudos to you, because it has been a topic discussed upon many roundtables amongst women. And I hold up my hand, you know, I speak on the matter for myself, not judging anybody, but if this sounds and resonates like yourself, who has raised a child in a single home, then I thank you for your honesty. All right, so let's commence. So being the you they wish to see is like the famous Mahatma Gandhi quote, be the change you wish to see in the world. So I'm glad that I can see 2 males on the platform, and even 3. David, thank you for joining us across the Atlantic. I hope you're going to be vocal today, because it's a Father's Day edition. So I'm going to open up the platform very early, and I have a question that I'd like to pose to the gents first. And I'm hoping that you're all fathers on this platform. And if you're not, then you must have a nephew or a godchild or somebody who you have some kind of relationship with that, you know, you're a role model of some kind. Yeah. So how has it been for you in the role you have played as a father figure? Z, you said I'm echoing. I hope I'm not echoing no more. Am I still echoing? Can someone give me a thumbs up? Am I echoing still?
No.
All
Not
right,
on my
cool.
side, no, you're fine.
All right, so question, I'm throwing it out there. Can I have some examples of parenting from the males? Scott, let me come to you on this one, and then you can open up from the father side of things. How has, you know, how has it been for you in the role you've played in raising your children?
It hasn't been easy. It's been quite difficult, actually. Just the relationships that you might have with your children, because there's different stages that they go through, isn't it? So when they're young, they're babies, so you're giving a lot of nurturing, you're giving a lot of caring, but then you also have to try and mold them into what you want. And then when they get to secondary school, it's a different type of relationship. Because as a dad now, you need to be a bit more boundary, a bit more containing, a bit more, what's the right word I'm looking for? Disciplined and enforcing. But you don't want to enforce till you build up hostility. So it's a softly approach. And like I always refer back to my granddad. Granddad used to say, you got to bend a tree from when it's young. If you try to bend a tree when it's old, then it's going to become firm and it's going to break. So my children are quite old, well, 30s and 20s. But I can't imagine what it's like raising a child now because of all the influence of the outside world. And if you're not a proactive dad, because, you know, there's a lot of part-time dads out there, unfortunately, we're looking at institutional, organizational, systemic racism, and all of those things have an impact on our ability to raise our children. So unfortunately, there is a lot of part-time dads out there, and that's got to do with the mindset and the socialization that we have. And can you raise children part-time? I don't think so. And then there's also about the relationships that we have with the mother of our children. How does that pan out in terms of how we raise our children, in terms of the frequency of our contact, in terms of the commitment of that, what we make. So I remember speaking to this man years ago when he was talking about he wanted to be involved in his children's life. And I said, what is your commitment to them? And do you stick to your commitment? And he's saying, yeah, I'll go for my youth then when I'm ready. And I said, that's just the problem there. Because what you're showing the mother of your children is that you are not offering consistency. And it's better you offer consistency than offering sporadic engagement, because that's, in my words, just nonsense. So being a father is a thin line between being a role model, being a friend, being an authority figure, being knowledge, being guidance. It's an all-round thing to be a father. And if you haven't learnt that skill, or you haven't been shown that skill, then you can get it really wrong. Yeah, you can get it really wrong. And I think because of the jobs that we do now.
How you doing? Good.
How you doing? Yeah, I think because of the jobs that I do now, I've seen the consequences of when it's gone wrong, when it hasn't been consistent, it hasn't been stable. And this is when I start thinking about trauma. I talk about trauma a lot because over the past 17 years, most of the people that I've worked with, when we go back, there is some traumatic experiences in their life that have shaped who they are and why they're in these difficulties. And even as adults, a lot of us are carrying wounds that are open still and they haven't been healed. So being a father, if you haven't addressed some of your own wounds, that then what we call leaks out into the relationships that you have with your own children. So being a father is not just as simple as, you know, I buy my youth a bike and I go riding with them every other weekend. It's just a little bit bigger than that. So that's my experience, Diane.
And I thank you for that. And you know what I love about what we do, Scott, is our honesty in terms of so many times we have these discussions and everybody wants to be this perfect parent, and we know that is just, it's not true. We struggle and we struggle greatly, and when we enter that denial state of our parenting, it speaks volumes in that when something goes wrong with the child at a during a stage of their life, and we like to point the finger outwardly as opposed to taking ownership for what we didn't do or what we did do. So I can, you know, definitely resonate in terms of what you're saying with where you were and the example you gave about these absent fathers and the damage that it can have on the child. It can have a really big impact in a negative way, and we have to look at trying to clear it up later on with these traumas, and that means giving them the counseling they need, mentoring them, trying to get to the root cause of why you feel the way you feel, why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah, so I thank you for that, Scott. Is there anyone else that would like to share their, give an example of, or share what being a parent is like, being a father? I'd like to speak to the gents today on the platform. Thanks, Clive. I'll unmute you from this way. Go for it, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully, basically, I would say I agree with all what Scott said, and especially with relation to if you've got issues of your own with your own parents and all the trauma, and as you say, you recognize historical, yes, and how we've all been socialized, etc., and where your parents have come from, etc. Now, every one's individual. So I have two, a boy and a girl, and they're big old back people now, you know, you're to the 40s now. But what I found is, surprisingly enough, is shared dialogue with them. So I remember one time when I always went out a lot with them, and you talk to them and you give them as much as you can give them. Yes. At the time, especially if you have them when you're young. But the main one I found is that you must listen to them, because even though they're young, they know what's going on. And taking them out one time, and I think I was not really on the ball at one point, and I went to Madame Tussauds, and a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old basically backed me up on Baker Street Station, and I had to listen to what they had to say. And Ashim. But the thing is, how many years later they recognize and say, well, we spoke to Dad and you fix up. So it is a two-way thing. And even they are yours. When I say they're yours, they're still your children. So even if they're in their 40s or their 30s, you still have this relationship with them. You know, especially your girls, especially, and for a male to his daughter. I would say with boys now, I would say that they're different, especially if you're very much alike. You know, you could look at myself, look at my son, and it's like you're looking at two people of exactly the same. So you find you have to kind of like deal with it as best as you can. And I mean, like a couple of years ago, I had to read him the Riot Act in a proper way, sit down with his mum and his two sisters and just say, well, look, I cannot, you know, just give your heart to them, basically. It's no use coming in with the macho business or, you know, me and the man round here, you can't tell me what to do. And this doesn't wash anymore. And there's that part when you bend them from when they're young, and just say that you basically, well, just you work with them. I find work with them, and it's good fun. So I would say yes, you have your challenging times, but they never get beaten. They never got none of that. They done pretty well. They've done very well, and I just feel if you just give of yourself and be honest. You know, share if you want to go out, especially if you had them young. If I was young and I used to like go out and play music, etc., you just drag the kids with you. I said, well, that's what my mum and dad did when they went out. You had to go with them. So you drag these two little kids with you. Right, you carried the record box and you carried this. And you went out and they remember all these things. So you do your best. And when it was legal enough, when you could have about 6 picnic packers, because we were all having children, then you found that, said, you know, I used to have sleepovers. And I would tell you people, never underestimate children. They know what's going on in the world. And it was like listening to CNN News. So,
Yeah.
you know, you've just got to work with them, give them the best you can. But you do have these boundaries, as you said, and, you know, just keep them on the straight and narrow, but please don't kind of terrorize your picnic of them. No, it doesn't work. Dialogue is the best.
Totally in agreement with that, Clive. Is there anyone else that wants to share their experience as a parent? Is there any more men? I want to hear from the men. I just want to say, Errol, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Diana. Hi, how you doing? You're right.
I am good. Thank you for joining us today. I don't know how much you heard on the topic, but I'll read it out for you. But the question basically is asking, how has it been for you in the role you played in raising a child? And I don't know if you have children, but from a non-parental perspective, you know, you can tell. I'd like to introduce you so that way you can tell us what you do. So, you know, I know that you're big figurehead for social engagement. So if you just want to, I want to introduce you to Errol Donald. So Errol Donald, I listened to on a webinar this morning. Him and Scott spoke on the systemic racism and the criminal justice system. And I found their contribution so informative and so fitting for where the world is moving to right now. So I took it upon myself to go and research upon Mr. Donald, because I've not heard of his work before. And I got him, I guess, at a good time, and he was happy to join us today, hence why he's here today. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Errol, if you'd like to just say who you are, what you do, and so on and so forth.
Thank you, Diana. You with your fast self, innit? So I'm like I was born in Kensal Rise, kind of grew up in Wembley, and yeah, I've kind of had a bit of a journey. But what I currently do is I'm a therapeutic wellbeing practitioner. I have my own consultancy called Mind Spray, but I also support a charity in Harlesden called Bang, and I'm sort of working with the council and other organisations primarily to work with young people in a creative way to kind of explore their emotional health and well-being, using creative approaches and culturally informed approaches. I've trained as a therapist, and I found the training just so lacking in any kind of cultural content or kind of cultural perspective. And so I've kind of had to work that out on my own. I'm very grateful for being born and raised in West London's Caribbean community, which I think is rich with so many different things that have supported my journey at the very least. But yeah, I am passionate about trying to change the system in every way, any way I can. So whether that's from within, or whether that's as an advocate for young people, yeah, having gone through the system and come out okay, but come out with a few scars and a few bruises, I just want to make that journey a little less challenging for those people who are kind of currently going through it. Because I know that, like the presentation I did this morning, like showed a picture of young boys in Birmingham from the 80s, and it was such a, to me, it's such like a beautiful picture, because these kind of young men just look so proud and so crisp, you know. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of see a beauty in Black people that doesn't often kind of get shown in a natural way. It's either hyper masculine or over sexualized. And so yeah, I'm kind of old school. I've got a grown up son with his own kids, so I'm forced to be new school. But yeah, I'm just trying to do the right thing with a bit of foundation flavor.
Thank you. I actually took a picture of that picture that you took, so I'm hoping everyone can see it.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah.
Yeah, the photographer is a guy called Vanley Burke, and he's like, I guess, like one of the godfathers of Black photography, based in Birmingham, born in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. But he took loads and loads of photographs of Black life in Handsworth and the Birmingham area. And
what year was this? Do you know what year this was?
Back that's in the 84, 70s? Believe it or not. That's 84, believe it or not.
Oh,
it looks older, isn't it? Yeah, that's 84.
I'm glad you spoke on Birmingham, because I'm hoping David will speak to me, because he's a dear friend of mine, and he actually was born in Birmingham and left to go and live in New York from, I think, 14. But I'll throw that out there because I know he's at the job at the same time. So he's in between at the moment. So hopefully he can join us somewhere before the platform comes to an end. But yes, thank you for that, Donald. I also know that you do art as a form of that influences your sphere with your young people. Is that correct?
That is correct. So my background, so I'm kind of a pioneering graffiti artist. So like I had an older brother, and like he did all the cool things that I wanted to do and wasn't allowed to do. So he was dimming the lights, and he was smoking all sorts, and he was riding motorcycles. He was doing all the stuff and getting in trouble for it, but he was breaking the rules, which meant that for me and my younger brother, it was like Operation Down. It was like coldest. So when I finally got to kind of shock out a bit, I was on the tail end of Lovers Rock, but I really kind of got a sneak peek on hip hop culture and graffiti art, and I sort of became a fairly well-known graffiti artist.
Very therapeutic, I can say for myself. I'm not an artist by no stretch of the word, but I remember growing up when we had access to youth clubs and we used to do murals. I grew up in Chalk Hill, so to pass the time, we were given from the local authority the opportunity to paint in certain parts of the estate. And murals, for those who don't know about art, is actually a grid, and you take the very same picture, and it just makes painting easier. And I just found it very therapeutic. I was never keen on art or exposed or wanted to even think about it, but that for me was therapeutic. And when I saw the end results, I knew that that would be there forever until they knocked down the whole estate. But I contributed to that, and it gave me this sense of ownership and belonging, because somebody saw something in us that we didn't see.
Mm.
And it's about giving, you know, giving people your time, giving us your time, because through giving us your time to venture, we found something that we didn't know we had in us. And some people did actually go on further to go to college and study art. So all it took was for that person to make that time in the way they did. And that was where it happened for that budding artist that has gone on and, you know, painted some real, what do you call them? I won't even say, what's his name? Anyway, Monet kind of arty type things. So yeah, so thank you for that, Errol. Much appreciated. And so you're Rise Man, me and you will talk. But yes, but yeah, you know, setting examples. This is what it's about. When I chose this topic, being the you they wish to see, we always know that that you is what we wanted to see in somebody, and so we always try to, you know, become that person that we were yearning for during our younger years. So I'm going to look at I want to talk about examples now, and you know, what do these type of examples look like? And like I said, I'm just throwing this out. These examples may not suit everybody or be for everybody. Everyone's going to have their own examples of, you know, what that you is, that this child is looking to see. What we find in terms of nurturing behavior is fundamental to the growth of these young people. So I'm looking at stability, I'm looking at security, I'm looking at safety, and I'm looking at a loving environment. And we know, as much as these are, you know, proven to be the foundation for the growth of a young person in the right direction, we know they can't always be met because of so many different environmental constraints. So with Scotty, for those who don't know, Scotty,
is it sure?
most mornings he gives a motivational message that is thought-provoking. So that's like a positive influence for the listeners. And one of the platforms, Jean-Claude spoke about investing in time into doing something and not just sitting there on it, but executing it, making it happen. So what kind of examples do you think would be ideal to a child wishing to see and wanting to see happen, to encourage their sphere of influence, for want of a better word? And I'm going to go into the next stage of this, which is where I talk about role modeling behavior. So it has been noted that positive role models can boost young people's motivation. They look up to that person to help shape and mold how they behave in this life. For example, school, relationships, friendships, careers, to name but a few. This is said to build character. So with that said, what makes you the you they wish to see? So I just used stability, security, safety, love, and environment. Those were very important for me because I know the environment where I was coming from, and I know my mother meant well, and you know, Clive can be a testament to that because he was a friend of my mother's. But my mum had, our home was like for waifs and strays. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like anybody who, you know, my mum fed, People could go chill out. It was a home that people could come to all the time, at any time. And even back then, growing up, you think, oh, wow, your house is cool, man. And people who I grew up with were like, you know, I wish our house was like that, you know, da-da-da-da. But later on, as I've gotten to that teenage years, I didn't want all these people around me. You know what I'm saying? I wish that my mum could just shut the door and put like this, like, no more, and I'll come back, find somewhere else to go. You know what I'm saying? So for me, that impacted my moral compass, that when I got to the age where I'm going to be starting out on that treadmill of life, there are things that I am just not going to be bringing into that section of my life. It's just not happening, because I know how that impacted my thinking back then. So that's why I chose these examples as stability, security, safety, and a loving environment. And I think that loving environment encompasses the three. So I just want to hear from anyone out there some examples that you think different to what I've heard, you know, for being a positive role model or influential in the life of a child. Yeah, whether you're a parent or non-parent. So would anyone like to give me some of their own examples, please? Don't all rush at once. Anyone? Okay.
Can I say, leading on from what Scotty said, consistency as a mother is very, very important. And, you know, I turned a mother young at 17. My oldest child's now 24. And it's just about, for me, raising them from a young age. It was about showing them that they can be better, that they won't be statistics, even though I was classified as a statistic. Being a teenage mum, I always had a goal to do my best and show my children the best. So it was consistent in everything, consistent in having routines, consistent in making sure that they didn't get labelled at school as that's the teenage mum's, you know, child over there, because, you know, she's not doing this. And I subsequently went on to have 2 more children. So consistency, communication is very important. Safety, honesty. And also there's no manual. One thing I always say to me, there's no manual on how to be a parent, how to be the best parent. What works for me may not work for you. But I think we've got to have honesty within ourselves, and we've got to have a structure, parents or family members or a friend who you can actually say, you know, check in, am I doing this right? Or can you give me some feedback, because, you know, it doesn't seem to be working with my children. So that's just my experience on parenting. And, you know, it's done me well. I've got the children through to, you know, the major stages of their life. They're in university, finished. And fortunate for me, they haven't committed any crimes, not known to social services, and are balanced, you know, people in society. So I'm happy with the formula that I used.
Thank you for that, Z. Anyone else like to share?
Yes, I'd like to say, Diana. I was one of those late mothers, because I decided I didn't want any children until there was a father figure around. And so I had my daughter when I was 40. But one of the things that was really important, I think, I met some from a business context. I met some people who were mentors and who really guided myself and my husband. But the key thing that I wanted to share was one of the things that they taught was to really build your child's self-esteem. And the way that we did that, the way that I did that was to make sure I wrote her a love letter every day to tell her how special she was. And in the night, we would sit together and read Bible stories and just make sure that we connected. And so that was something, she always had this little note, no matter what, every day. It was my job to make sure that she had that. And I am thankful to God that she does have very very clear self-esteem. Sometimes so much so that she'll take me to task now and turns the tables on me, but that's fine. She has a sense of self, and nobody's come to pull the wool over her eyes. And that to me has been really important. So that's me.
And that's a beautiful testament to what an example that you've chosen to use for your daughter, Miss Angela. That's very
Where you
powerful.
live? Where do man live? Me, I come live with him.
You'll have to fight my husband, sir.
No, I'll get the other room. Me want to tell it every day.
Oh, wow. Okay, is there anyone else before I move on? I want to, okay, communication is key. I'm just reading some messages in the chat. Stephanie says, I agree, listening to our children is key. I have always believed that we as adults and parents, we should show respect to children to gain their trust. It's all about communicating, and in return you will get respect. Totally agree, Stephanie. And again, communication is key. Hello, Janet. Hello. So, as we know, in certain households, we can't always get those fundamental examples because of where the parent is. And we know in cases such as the child not having their biological dad around, or if it's the roles reversed, because some dads do raise their children and they have the mother, yeah, and then both of the relations make the child. So therefore, the child who isn't of the blending of families, then let me put it like that. So then we have those children who grow up in those relationships where they are seeing this father figure who is not their dad, and they get treated. And these are case studies and stories that through when I was in education, a lot of children who I spoke to felt ostracized because the father wasn't their dad. They made them know, I'm not your dad. And so they felt away in that union. Well, it wasn't even a union because they felt ostracized because they didn't quite fit in. So then you've got, resentment. And not only that, Scotty said earlier, where the father is not proactive in that child's life. So the child grows with, resentment sets in, and then the behavior becomes rebellious. And this is where we talk about the critical trauma, which is, trying to understand the root cause of how we've now arrived at a stage where we have this child rebelling. And they didn't just wake up rebellious. Everything has a root cause to why it's happening. So I always like to throw in statistics, and here's one I have here. A 2009 study shows in a journal of youth and adolescence, which was spoken on negative adult influences. So adolescents' exposure to negative adult behavior was associated with increasing externalizing, internalizing, substance using, and school attitude behaviors. So collectively, this finding indicates that role models can contribute to the resilience of adolescents who are exposed to negative adult behavior, whether parent or non-parent. So with the work that Scott does, and I'm sure Errol shared with us as well, Scott gave a case study which I felt was just so powerful about how the trauma started from when, especially with the police, and how when the child saw, I think he said, Scott, the police came, paid a visit to his home, and how the mum and dad reacted to the way the police came into their home.
Mm.
when he was younger.
Mhm.
So he's not had this good relationship about the police. Is that right?
Yeah. That
So
exposure to that
person,
traumatic that traumatic incident as almost traumatized him. And I think having Errol in the call, because it's weird to see a next black therapist, male black therapist, because we are far and not, I wouldn't say far, I say we're not, there's not many. And to have that understanding of trauma and how it plays out and how that follows you. So even hearing you talk about an adult male being involved in a relationship where they don't acknowledge that child because it's not biologically, is not theirs, that they are almost not fulfilling the role. But then it just makes me think about generational trauma. Is that what that adult male experience, and that's how they communicate? So again, it's about experiences, is what we feel. And if I haven't had a nurturing relationship myself, you talked about an appropriate role model. Imagine for a lot of, I'm going to say our generation, because we're 50 plus, isn't it? A lot of us, we were traumatized because we didn't have those relationships. So when I thought about even my grandparents, when they came from the Caribbean, granddad came first and the children were in Jamaica. Then grandma came and the children were in Jamaica staying with the granny. And then it took a number of years for them to come. By that time, the relationships that they had with granddad had, I wouldn't say dissolved, but it was different because how they left them. And then my uncles growing up, how did that shape their perception of fatherhood? Then how did that then shape mine? So again, I think it's about trauma, because even looking at from a woman's perspective, that's her child and that's her, but yet she's in a dysfunctional relationship with a man that doesn't be a father. What was her experiencing of fatherhood? Because common sense, or what we say is, how could you have a man that don't check for you? If you love the car, you have to accept the car, isn't it? But because of their trauma and that need for that wound of hurt to be healed, I get involved in a dysfunctional relationship where it's not healthy. And at the cost of that is my children. And there you have the cycle again. And that child is going to grow up to be a man. So now when I look at this generation that we have now,
Scotty, you've muted somehow. Oh, okay.
phone call, I always think about just the trauma and the healing. And I suppose Errol might echo this sentiment. It's the healing that we need to provide. We need to provide that space, that warmth, that humility, that humbleness to allow healing to occur, because we are all hurting. And I think as we become older, lady that spoke about having a child at an older age, you've almost done some of that healing for yourself. So it makes you a stronger, better person. But for a lot of the youths coming up now, you know, mama's got her own problems. She's probably hasn't matured. Dad hasn't matured because he might be. So there hasn't been no real space for healing. And what Angela said about the self-esteem, it kind of echoed what we spoke about this morning in terms of systemic racism. It's about an identity. Who are you? So if we can get our young people to have a positive identity and increase their self-esteem, but then, I know this sounds really weird, but some of the parents don't have a positive identity. So you can't give what you don't have, because I don't feel that well about myself. I don't know my history. I don't know my journey. how can I possibly inspire my son or daughter? So it's interesting. I think this topic is interesting. I don't have the answers, but I'm always curious about what is our thinking. And I always think about our sphere of influence. And this is why I get involved in these things, because I think we all have an obligation to use our sphere of influence to give people that most precious thing of time and help them to be more curious about their own thinking. And sharing that thinking, could that then help? I don't know, that might make Diane go and speak to her son today about, or it might shape a conversation. But if we weren't in this space, we wouldn't be spending this curious time together, to be thinking together, to think, what can I do? How can I influence somebody? And then how might that person influence somebody else? So I think it's really important to have these types of thinking conversations. We don't have the answers, but something that I am really bang on is we need to understand the wounds. And a lot of people are walking with open wounds, and that has an impact on their very functioning in life. So that has an impact on their self-esteem, how they see themselves, their parenting capacity. Yeah, I'm gonna stop.
Yes,
I have to clap to that.
that is deep.
That's so deep. Yeah,
So
100.
deep. So deep.
Clive, I can see you
What
got
it
your hand up.
is, yeah, what Scott just said is so, that piece when he said, but he hasn't got the answers or anything. There was a piece, you know, when they had the big Brixton riots, yes, and they did the Scarborough report.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I was at uni as well, we did criminology, yeah, what causes a crime. Now, within this systematic thing that you were talking about just now, systematic racism, the piece that grilled my brain a bit was when they said all they had to do, the system, was mess up 2 generations, and then the rest will just follow through.
Oh.
And you know, so what you said there, Scott, to me, it just confirms it 100%. And so they, as you said, we're in our 50s, 60s. And so this is, it's this healing and this consistent healing that you've got to be doing on yourself as well. So in order that you don't pass this on. So it doesn't go into another generation, as to speak, and become this absent father, or you don't have anything to offer. And I found by helping or just talking to, like when the son was playing up and he was being a bit weird, I joined up and went to Feltham and did kind of mentoring there. And then just reaching out to anybody. It doesn't have to be a biological child. Mm-hmm. Just lend, you know, just give your hand. Even if it's just to say hello, you're all right, make sure they're all right. Do what you can do. But what you say there, that is something I feel very, very hurt by. And this wickedness, that's the only way I can put it, mess up 2 generations and then the rest will just follow through on its own. So really, with that knowledge, and you guys provide this platform, the more information you can provide in that way and actually kind of read it, as to speak, and then people can pass that on, then I think it's a good way, it's the way forward to heal. And then it makes you understand your own parents, understand where my dad comes from. He's living his life in reverse. He got, you know, he almost like an abandoned child. They end up having children so young, so they're still a child within themselves. So with that, so I don't feel that grudgefulness, you don't feel that unhappiness towards him, because it's an understanding. So yes, what you guys are doing is good. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. And we thank you for sharing your experiences, because we can't do it without you, because we're not the experts. And everybody's experience is valuable, and it's the truth. It's their truth, your truth. And it just goes back to what we said about these wounds, Scott. The wounds, and we have to look at there's 3 stages of development that we have. And when I talk about the adolescence, you know, that's the process of developing from a child into an adult. So we know that, you know, from 0 to 8, we've got, you know, the formative years, and this is where the whole rapid cognitive behavior comes in. So this is where the building of the intellect comes in. So earlier on, Scott gave me an example of a mother telling her child to copy what it was she was doing, and what we learned from that was that the child was failing to listen to the instruction but mimicked exactly what he visually saw. So we know that this whole listening is an issue for some children. It's an issue. Yeah. So I'll just jump back onto the formative years of being 0 to 8. So this comprises of social, emotional, and physical development. This development occurs based on the child's responses and the interaction between genetics. Then you have got, you know, again, the environment and exposure, hence the nature-nurture debate, which, you know, is such a big umbrella. It will take another platform to go into that. And then you've got the adolescence years, which I said between 10 to 19. And then you've got the early adult, which is 20 to 25. So we're looking at from 0 to 25. That's a quarter of, you know, a century. That is what it takes, 25 years to really develop the mindset of us as human beings, number one. Yeah. So when it comes to the 0 to 8, so imagine whoever is your child carer, your parent, guardian, whoever it is that has got you at 0 to 8, where the whole rapid cognitive learning comes into it. This is where you, as that child, your assessment of the world, they call it thin slicing, is using a limited amount of evidence to shape your world. Now, we as adults, yeah, we call this, we act on limited evidence so many times, which we call it jumping to conclusions, yeah? And we do that as adults. So can you imagine between the ages of 0 to 8, where you're trying to assess the world through your eyes, and whatever you see around you, you are going to mimic it, yeah? And then that's kind of like the primary stage. Then you've got the secondary stage, which is where you go into the educational setting, yeah? And then the family members. So from 10 to 19, again, you're building who you are based on the influences around you, yeah? So here you are already taken into your adolescence, all of what the world has presented itself to you at that time. And then you come to a stage where you feel like you're this young adult, this young child trapped in an adult body, because you've learned so much. You almost think you're this big person now, and you want to start executing those behaviors. But you're being told, at one hand, you're being told to stop it or shut up. You're not no big woman. And then on the other hand, you're being told you're old enough to know, do better. So you're confused. Do you know what I'm saying? You're confused. You're just like a pendulum. Yeah. So in knowing that we've got these 3 stages of development, you know, are there any parents that can remember a time that they saw certain unsavory behaviors presenting themselves, and what action was taken, and how was that situation handled? Because not all of us are aware of the child development of children. We just, as Lee said earlier on, there's no manual. Everything is trial and error. You know, if we've got great role models, then yeah, we've got those to show us, teach us how to do certain things. But those 3 stages of growth are so imperative to the understanding, the root of who we are as the people that are sitting on these platforms. They shaped us into who we are. They shaped us into choosing why you know, Scott wanted to be a therapist, why I studied psychology and sociology and wanted to go into education and teach those kids who had become disaffected from learning. There were triggers in my own upbringing that made me navigate into being curious and wanting to feed, not just continue to feed my mind, but know, because of my own background and how it shaped me, you almost want to be this superhero. You feel you know enough to stop something or start something. So given the information that I've just shared with you, you know, and you don't have to, because I know, you know, just hearing what people are sharing, it's all coming full circle as to being the you that these children wish to see and understanding, but how can you be who they wish to see when you don't even know yourself? You're still healing, you're still understanding the triggers that make you do certain things that you do. And even in this adult stage that we are, we're still figuring out things, because life gives us different events that make us have to question, I thought I had this sussed, and you didn't. You know what I'm saying? So we're all learning. Learning never ceases, it never stops. All right. So is anyone, you know, wanting to share any experiences that they have, or just want to talk about having been provided so much information? It might resonate with you, but hold on a minute. You know what I'm saying? By all means, please share.
You know something, because I've got to leave in a minute, but I think what you said around the different stages of development is really good, because we don't, our mind, our brain doesn't stop growing till we're 25. But again, this is around our programming. This is around organizational, institutional things, and culturally what we learn. When our children turn to 18, the first thing that we're keen to do is come out my yard. You're a big man, isn't it? That nurturing. But you just said that the brain, the three, and it's right. So when we're looking at services now, they're already looking at services, i.e. they need to change the transitioning age. Because most young people, when they get to 18, services that they are able to access are just cut. So now they're looking at how services are designed. Do they need to make the transition larger to 25? Because now there's so much theoretical kind of input now that's saying actually the brain don't stop going to 25. And then throw into that mix trauma, throw into that mix institutional discrimination. Now can you see why our young people are wounded? Because the expectations that we have, and again, that's because of our expectations, because what were we told when we were 18 and 19? You're big, you need to go and get a job and come out my yard. So that's learnt behavior. And then we do the same thing. And if you look at most other families or most other people or so forth, children go in university, when they come back, they're going straight into their mum's house, dad's house, because they're not grown. And we're asking people that are not developed mentally to go out into the wild world. And then unfortunately, some of them are having children, 22s, 23s. And yeah, it's a cynical situation, but it's not, because we can provide the information. So I'm before I leave, I will say I'm never disheartened. I think we can always do our bit. And as I said, doing these platforms again is helpful. Even if there's 10 or 15 people on the platform to share that information. I mean, look at this morning, I'm on a panel. I've sent you the information, Diane. You've tuned in. You've reached out to someone on the panel. Now they're in your panel, and now they might go and tell someone, and Errol might link with me, he might link with you. And then and this is what we need to do. We need to share the information and share the knowledge, because, you know, Malcolm X, I got him tattooed on my arm. He said, liberate your minds by any means necessary. And I do believe that is in educating your community and supporting your community. So, yeah, it's an interesting thoughtful space to have those thinkings. And I always leave this space with more thinking than when I came in. So now I'm going to go away and think, okay, boom, 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 boom. How do these things interact? And that picture that you spoke about, Errol, around those young men on the saw, on the swing, reminded me of me being on the front line. Yes, it was difficult times, but we had a sense of who we were, a sense of, you know, there was this strong Caribbean kind of thread that was woven into that. We used to go to Donovan Court and I used to watch the big man then play dominoes and drink white rum and have liquid milk with it. But I say, you used to know your corner. You used to have to like, and those were beautiful times. And I think
Did you see the picture, Scott? I had it. I took a picture of it.
I saw the picture, the guys on the swing, and he said it was in Birmingham. And he made reference to the young man in the white t-shirt. And just remember back in the day when, and I'm not going to go back in historical and talk about back in the day, but we did have a stronger sense of self. And like our young people, they would be mingling with what you titled this program as appropriate role models. Because even though we was in this community and things were hard, some of the guys that we were around were appropriate role models. And even though in society's eyes, they weren't because they're on the front line and whatever, but for us experiencing that, they were appropriate role models. And I think we all have the capacity to do that. So I'm gonna love and leave you guys because I've got some things to go and think about. But yeah, it's been really useful sitting down and just sharing our thinking together. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that people's had the space to reflect a little bit more, which is useful. And before I go, Errol, make sure you leave a contact detail with Diane, please, because I need to get in contact with you. I'm in Harsden. I've been stone busy all my life, busy all day, and it will be good. It will be good to have a conversation, Errol. So I'm going to love and leave you.
All right, Scott, thank you, sir. Thank you, as always. Much appreciated, yeah? And I'll get back to you. Nice one, nice one. Thank you.
Thanks,
yeah. Errol, you heard that, yeah?
I did, yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So, I can't emphasize more on the power of these platforms and these discussions because we're so educated, more than we'd ever know. And the wealth of knowledge that we share on these platforms is so appreciated. And I always say that we are answers to somebody's thinking. And unless we open up and share, we will never know how we've transformed the life, impacted the life, being the you they wish to see, you know, the change, Mahatma Gandhi, you know, we are of this era now. So my quote, because I quote this, I coined this phrase, be the you they wish to see. So thank you, Mahatma Gandhi. But you know what? This is the way forward now. Be the you we wish to see, or they wish to see, because this is what it's all about. And again, the understanding of the 3 stages to this process of growth. So I want to talk about the impressionable years. Are supposed to be the years that shape them into young individuals fit for society. So today we have touched on the importance that having positive role models does and can bring, and also negative adult influences in their life and how they each contribute to the building or breaking down of character. All are the ingredients to the stretching of their social emotional aspects of learning because of you, because of us. Do you understand me? So I always like to throw a scripture in, which is what I do, because I like to bring the world system and kingdom principles into one. So I'm going to be reading from Isaiah 40, verse 31, and it says, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." So because of us, we are those wings. We are those eagles that are being looked upon for these young people to see, so they can soar just by the influence that we are having. And I want to say positive influence that we are having as role models in their life. So I sent out this quote today for Father's Day, or I sent it out on Sunday, and it reads this: all fathers, role models, uncles, godfathers, you will never truly know how important your presence is in the lives of the young who are watching you in admiration, because you are and have been in their sphere of influence. Know the role you can play. It's time for reflection and introspection. Children do not stay young, they grow up to have a mind of their own. Parents, be mindful of what you feed into your children. And I was watching James Baldwin on BBC One, and again, I advise everyone, if you haven't seen it, to go and watch it. And it speaks about when Scotty spoke about our wounds being open and raw, and he quoted, what can be your hurt as a parent can also be their torture. And I thought that was just so profound, because hurt people, we don't even know we're doing it. You know what I'm saying? Because it becomes innate, it becomes in us, our way of thinking and everything else. So I'll read it again. What can be your hurt as a parent can also be their torture. They are wanting, watching, and waiting on you, hence being the you they wish to see. So they're wanting, waiting, and watching. You are their curriculum. Yeah, you are the stimuli before the world upon which they can go into and soar. You are their first port of call. So whatever it is that you're doing or you're not doing, you are shaping and molding that child, those children, those young people who are in your, you know, you're in their sphere of influence. So it's about being mindful. If today was a day that has kind of urged you to think about fixing up yourself, then good.
Yeah.
That's what I want to say, good. Because sometimes we need to have a little shake up of self, because we can be our own worst enemy to not just ourselves, to those people who are around us, and we need to fix up. We need to fix up. So I'm mindful of the time, and I have made it to the end. And I think today has just been, you know, we've been blanketed with a wealth of knowledge, and we are all, you know, experienced enough to give accounts for so much change. Even if it's that little amount, it's something. So let's be the you that they wish to see. And I just want to say thank you for your time. Yes.
Amazing. Thanks, Dee. Amazing.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you all. Errol, once again, you can email it to me, and then we can take it from there. And
yeah, that's cool. No problem.
We'll meet up differently on that. I just want to say thank you, Diane, Galaxy, Janet M, David, Ty, Marilyn, Val, Stephanie, Z, Suzette, Gemini.
What? Whole school?
Clive,
wow.
Angela, you know, this is the support we're talking about.
Yay.
This is the growth. You understand me? This is the growth.
Yeah.
This is the movement. This is the battle.
Yeah.
Goes, Pastor Lloyd.
I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to all the males that came on today and spoke. Thank you so much, because I love to hear it from a man point of view. So that's helped the group today. That's why I was being quiet there. You know, I was really enjoying it. Hi, everybody. You know, but thank you again.
I second that, Pastor Lloyd. You know, because we always have a shrinkage of males. So when we do get them, we just want we just want to hear, because it's important. It really is important. And I love to hear from the male perspective, because I said earlier that women have taken on that adaptation of being that father figure. We've sat there, I've said it, I'm mum and dad. There was times in my life with raising my children when I was both mum and dad, and we had those round table discussions, and that's not what it's about. I want to speak about the fathers who are there, and kudos to those mothers who have taken on that role. But we know we cannot be the father that they need. They need to have that male in their life. I'm sorry. They need to have it. Yeah. Don't matter how much you want to provide, whichever way we've done it, they need their father in their life. Unfortunately, there's some that can't have that, but they need a male, a good male role model. Not, and I don't mean those on the TV. I'm talking in their community, because we've got some great people in our community.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's the standpoint I'm coming from. Sorry.
Hello, good evening. Yes, good evening. I'm Theo Manderson. I'm Pastor Louis. How are you?
And who am I speaking to?
Theo, it's Theo.
Oh, hi, Theo. How are you?
I'm fine.
You enjoyed your birthday?
Yes. Is this an every week discussion? Is it?
Yes, it is.
It's every week. What, 7 o'clock?
Yes, every Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. Scotty sent me the link. That's all.
All right. What's your name, Theo? So what I know what to do. If you could do me a favor, could you leave your details in the chat, and
All right, no problem. I'll do that now.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And you know, how did you find it as a first timer?
I caught the last, say, 20 minutes of it. It was good. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what the whole discussion was around. I just heard Scotty talking about trauma and development, and I heard you talking about development and child development and the processes and stages that we go through. It's very good. It's very good.
And what do you do, sir? What's your work?
I'm a mentor, behavior specialist. I'm also a radio presenter on Premier Gospel.
Oh, nice one. Nice one. Nice one. So Theo, okay, Theo, I'm looking forward to receiving your digits. Z said she would love to hear from young fathers. So that's another platform, Z. I've got some young fathers in the wing wanting to be a part of this, young fathers and young mothers. So that's definitely one that's coming up. The topics are there. The participants are there, and just like I like to just, you know, how I track down people, you know, Errol today, you know, I was just on the platform, and how he spoke on his worth and what he does. I thought, you know what, because I've written the contents for the show, so it was so fitting that hearing what the webinar was about this morning, I knew that I needed him to be a part of today. And I'm so grateful, Errol, that you were able to join us, because you could obviously, you know, had other things going on, but you cared to join us.
Yeah, thank you for the invite, Diana. Like, you know, they say that there are no coincidences. So yeah, I'm blessed to be part of the group. I'll probably join a bit earlier next time because I was running a bit late, but thank you very much for the invitation.
No problem.
It was lovely.
We're always on time. We're always on time. Yeah. Okay. This is 7 o'clock is man time. It's not God's time. But yeah, so I'm not going to keep you anymore. Theo, I can't see the number, but what I do is I get it from Scotty. Yeah. Oh, whoa. Let me just take that there. I can see it. So I'll be back next week. Scott joins me every other week, but the topics are still in full swing. And, you know, whether you want to talk about matters close to the heart, we host a spiritual platform on a Saturday, same ID number, which starts at 11 o'clock, which is very empowering as well. So you're welcome to join us on a Saturday between the hours of 11 and 1 p.m. if you want some fuel, spiritual fuel to carry you through. But in saying that, once again, I just want to say thank you for joining me, because this weather is glorious. If you could see, I'm sweating behind the screen and I need to get some fresh air. So enjoy the rest of the evening. I bid you a safe and productive remainder of the week, and I look forward to meeting up further with Theo and with Errol and everybody else. Thank you for joining us, and Val and all the first timers. And like I said, please share, just share, get it out there, let the movement grow, and we look forward to from here onwards. All right, so take care, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.